Are Black Britain suffering from Stockholm Syndrome because we've fallen in love with our British captors? This is the InSight. You would have to be hiding under a rock to not have recognized that black diaspora beef has kind of been a thing on social media over the past year. But if Twitter spats and YouTube back and forth weren't enough, Spike Lee had to take it mainstream with his now infamous second season of She's Gotta Have It. Full disclosure, I have not yet watched the season. Love Spike Lee as an artist. Have a lot of time for his work for the most part, but after season 1, the release of season 2 didn't have me running to my bootleg Netflix account with any enthusiasm whatsoever. Then, like you, the issue of black British actors forced the show squarely into my consciousness. Now, I watched the scene and listened to the character Olu Owoye say, quote, "Black British actors are better suited than black American actors for stateside roles because they don't carry the burden of effed black American history, of lynching, slavery, Jim Crow, or that. Black Brits are free from the psychological burden, therefore they can delve into black American-ish." I heard the words and thought, who would say that? I literally know no African in the UK that would utter this nonsense. Did he actually just say that Africans in Britain don't carry the burden of slavery? The whole statement seemed totally contrived as a plot device simply to set up Nola's epically ignorant mic drop of a response. Like really? Who needs to tell an African in the UK that Britain was the #1 slave trader? We live in the midst of the stolen wealth. We see it every day and have no access to it. What kind of 2-minute noodle conversation is this? Nobody would say that. But then I discovered I could be wrong. Spike Lee was unrepentant in his Instagram responses to disgruntled Africans in the UK who took him to task over the scene. His initial response was a dismissive "truth hurts," followed by a reference to a 2017 article by black British actor David Harwood. The problem is, what Harwood actually said was, quote, "Perhaps it's precisely because we are not real American brothers that we black British performers have the ability to unshackle ourselves from the burden of racial realities and simply play what's on the page, not what's in the history books," unquote. Not quite the same thing, is it? But problematic nonetheless. Aside from the fact that he's really just parroting the tricks of the trade as taught by mainstream acting schools around the world, clearly his words were exaggerated to suit what Spike and episode writer Barry Michael Cooper wanted to get out of the scene. Exaggerated though they are, the words do read as a detachment from the black American experience. The fundamental issue here, however, is the fact that Harwood's words were used in She's Gotta Have It to represent the black British perspective and the collective black British experience. This was easily avoidable because there are many black actors who have things very different to say on the issue. First up to bat, Daniel Kaluuya, the man whose role in Get Out inspired Samuel Jackson to start this storm in the first place. In an interview with GQ, he attempted to set the record straight about the African experience in the UK. He spoke on the history of no dogs and no blacks in terms of housing, police brutality, the uprisings that took place in the 1980s and 2011. Kaluuya concluded his statement by saying, quote, "Even people who say that black people are minorities, there are 1 billion black people in the world, 1 billion white people. What part of that is a minority? If you separate yourself, then maybe. But I see black people as one, man. When I see people beaten on the streets of America, that hurts me. I feel that." Where Harwood expressed detachment, Kaluuya expressed relatability and empathy based upon a shared experience. Where Harwood expressed his individual opinion, Kaluuya relayed the collective history of Africans in Britain. It's a far more substantive statement, and one that seemed to be supported by his peers in the craft. So why couldn't Kaluuya's comments have been the source of inspiration for the dialogue in this scene? In truth, however, Spike and his team haven't come out of nowhere with this. Since 2017, the conversation has only got worse. And over the past year, American descendants of slavery, #ADOS, have swept black social media, the subject of black British actors in Hollywood being one of its popular talking points, with leaders Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore even going as far as to promote the idea that Nigerian actors such as David Oyelowo and Cynthia Erivo should be interrogated on whether their ancestors were slave traders before being allowed to act as black Americans. You know, because they sold us into slavery. It is worth noting that there's no shortage of white British actors active in Hollywood, for generations in fact. And while it does spark the odd debate here and there, nothing like the hype currently dominating the so-called black American versus black British actors debate has ever been seen. It seems generally understood that Hollywood is far bigger than the British film industry and therefore provides more opportunities for actors. If anyone finds white Americans bringing up British colonization of America in relation to white Brits in Hollywood, please show me. I will be very interested to know. To the contrary, in fact, British and American films tend to routinely reinforce the so-called special relationship that exists between the two nations, a union that makes English-speaking film in general the powerhouse it is today. So, we have to consider that there may be a divide and conquer tactic at play as far as Hollywood is concerned. But why is it so easy for them to be effective? Even Samuel Jackson clarified his initial critique by saying, quote, "It was not a slam against black British actors, but it was just a comment about how Hollywood works in interesting sort of ways sometimes." Unquote. Which begs the question, why are black actors from the UK holding the brunt of this critique and not Hollywood itself? Spike Lee himself is not a stranger to that kind of critique. The Do the Right Thing director won a long overdue Oscar this year for his film Black Klansman. As well as expressing much elation, his acceptance and press speeches revealed that he was not completely bowled over with happiness. 4 years ago, he was the recipient of an honorary Oscar, which he accepted with a blistering speech featuring this ever so pertinent observation.
Spike Lee has put more African Americans to work in this business than anyone else in the history of this business.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. I'm gonna get real here. Everybody in here probably voted for Obama, but when I go to offices, I ain't see no black folks except brother man at the security guard who checks my name off the list as I go into the studio. So we could talk, yabba yabba yabba, but we need to have some serious discussion about diversity and get some flavor up in this. This industry is so behind sports, it's ridiculous. It's easier to be the President of the United States as a black person than be the head of the studio. Honest. It's easier to be the President of the United States than to be head of a studio or head of a network. Let's leave Oprah out of it. She doesn't count.
This to me is the heart of the issue. One thing I noticed from the She's Gotta Have It scene, they mention slavery, Jim Crow, and lynching. But with all the atrocities inflicted on black people, there was one glaring omission: colonization. The system of updated national enslavement that has entirely defined the black experience in Britain. It is absolutely clear that the black experience in the UK is largely unknown to the black diaspora. But to what extent is that a reflection of the untold story of colonialism and how it continues to affect black life? How many films and TV series are written by black people that truly explore colonialism in the same way that Hollywood routinely plays out the history of World War II and the Holocaust? Furthermore, there is a serious deficit of narratives that explore the global black power movements of our history, Spike Lee included. African diaspora cinema has largely overlooked and ignored these narratives or reduced them to caricatures that cannot be taken seriously by black audiences. And this is despite the wealth of material that the Pan-African movement on the African continent, the Rastafari movement in the Caribbean, the black power movements in the USA and the UK have to offer in compelling narratives tailor-made for the small and the big screen. The result is that the African diaspora has been starved of creative, artistic, visual media production that would increase our understanding of each other rather than exacerbate superficial or non-existent differences while we fight over the crumbs from Hollywood's table. So the question really is, do black Britons need to do more to share the black British experience with the rest of the African diaspora? Should black American actors be more mad at Hollywood executives than black British actors? Hollywood is the biggest English-speaking film market in the world. As a result, is the rest of the black world far more familiar with the black American experience than black Americans are with our experience? Is Hollywood or the British film industry the right vehicle for sharing our narratives with each other? Or would the African diaspora benefit from the development of a worldwide African diaspora film industry that can empower us all? Those are the questions, and this is the InSight. What a piece of pasa. Family, this was an interesting one to explore. To be honest with you, I think this is a completely stupid debate, but obviously it's a conversation that we need to have. So keep the conversation flowing. As we always say, like, comment, and do share the thing. Like, comment, and do share the thing. Keep it interactive. Please respect each other in the chat if you do choose to interact, and we look forward to getting over this silly debate and producing, making black world cinema what we know it can and should be. Do want to send a special shout out to the ancestor, Usman Sambeni, who's in the picture over here, and the living legend, Haile Gelema. Two African directors that really did the thing in a very big way independently. They are an example for us all. See you again in a couple weeks' time for the next InSight. And do remember, you ain't got nothing if you ain't got Kush. Peace.
gotKushTV is supported by Better Marketing Mastery, Defenders Entertainment, The Hidden Science Academy, Black History Walks, Centre of Pan-African Thought, the Manhood Academy for Boys, the Al-Qaeda and Revivalist Movement, and Marifa Circle.